How's everyone doing? It's good to see everyone.
Yeah, good to see you too. We're good.
I mean, it's spooky season, so
I
perfect timing for
know.
some goosebumps, right?
That's right. That's right. It'd be weird to release this in a different season.
I mean, October 13th, Friday the 13th. It's going to be amazing on Disney Plus and Hulu. Can't wait for people to see the episodes. I had a blast. I grew up with the Goosebumps. I'm a 90s kid. Rob, it's interesting because I feel like, with the film as well from 2015, with this one, there's familiar territory and unfamiliar territory. We know the Goosebumps universe and some of our favorite titles and everything. But we're kind of having a little bit of a reimagination with this series and kind of an expansion and new characters and everything. So I feel like it was a unique situation for everyone involved. Did it feel like a unique situation when you saw everyone signed on for this project in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, unique in the sense that, we wanted to do something different and fresh and original with it. And, the movie was awesome. And that's sort of it's unrelated to the movie. That the movie's like a meta take on Goosebumps. This isn't really, we wanted to embrace the books, but not do it as an anthology. You want to do it serialized.
Yes.
So once we cracked like a concept we got very excited about, which was taking the books, stories and totems and mapping them to characters that all kind of coexist in this town and having them come together mid-season and then go on to the back 5 episodes to uncover, what started it all in the first place. That was just a really cool premise to dive into. So yeah, that's where it all started.
Pretty sneaky a little bit too, because if people kind of go in a little bit blank and they'll just see all the names of the episode, just assume, like you said, it's anthology, but it is not. And that's like the best part about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of surprises. We're very excited for, especially fans like yourself, because I don't know how old you are, 30s ish. Right? So
91, absolutely.
Okay, but the show is very much for that age group. Yep. Adults with and without kids, but and still the younger audience as well, but also for people who've never seen or heard or read Goosebumps. It works on a lot of levels, so
100%.
We're excited.
But Hilary has that kind of balance of it's got the spooky kind of vibes. I mean, the opening of the series, like, I don't want to say much, is like one of my favorite things I've ever seen. I just love the opening scene that kind of starts everything. It's so fantastic. It's so well done. But it kind of has a lot kind of in here as well, not just kind of the spooky stuff. It's got some heart. It's got, a lot of kind of themes about a lot of important things and self-reflection. How important was that to kind of make this series not just kind of spooky, but kind of create the kind of human element of it as well?
I mean, look, I think that what horror does best is talk about big, hard things that nobody wants to talk about, and do it and present it in a really fun way. And I think, our show is no exception. I mean, one of the reasons why doing this serialized was an opportunity to really take it somewhere. And, this is, ultimately a story about, generational trauma and, events that happen in these parents' lives that the kids are uncovering. And, I think that that's such a natural, relatable thing of, like, you start to try to wonder who your parents are and figure out who your parents are. And that's kind of what our teens are doing. It's just that we have these complications of these really scary horror elements on top of that, but it's very relatable of what they're trying to do. And ultimately they're just trying to figure out who they are. Yep. And so I love telling a really relatable story with monsters, basically.
Yeah, man, I was about to say, they're trying to figure out who they are while people might or might not be possessed and bodies would be.
Yeah.
Rob, it's cool that you mentioned about kind of the homage and kind of going to the books and everything. I mean, there's a lot of Goosebumps books, so I'm just curious, as much as you can tell me, in regards to the conversations with the producers and the writers, like, what was the selection process like of like which books were going to be kind of focused on for the series? As a fan, I'm really curious to know about that.
No, it's a good question. I mean, the honest truth, it was very organic. We'll pitch you the premise. You got the premise now. And it was just more of like, we wanted to figure out who those characters were first. And then we did focus on the first 60 books. So just full disclosure, like the early books were our favorite. And so we kind of did a deep dive on that. And then we just figured out which one of those mapped really nicely with our characters, and it all really just kind of came out effortlessly, I'll be honest with you. And that all happened before we even went out and pitched the show, so it was all baked in.
100%. And Hilary, it's interesting because I remember when it was announced that there's going to be a Goosebumps show, and I was so excited about it and everything. And when you're really kind of getting into it in terms of you're about to kind of film it and everything, I'm just curious what the creative mindset is, knowing that, this is an existing universe and everything, but there's going to be some changes and everything. What's the creative kind of mindset like right before you really get into the meat and potatoes of like filming the Goosebumps show? I'm just curious about that.
I think that luckily we had Rob as a leader, having been in the Goosebumps world, and, having talked to the author, R.L. Stine, and kind of knowing, where his head was at. But I think that it's always scary taking beloved things like The Mask, stories like Say Cheese and Die that like so many people remember, and then kind of putting it through this different filter. But I think one of the things that we always did is like, would we watch this? Is this what we want to see? And if you kind of use that as a guide, all you can do is hope that ultimately you have good taste. I think that we did. But yeah, it's always scary taking on a new world that people care about.
Rob, I loved how this was filmed. Could we give a shout out to the crew and the cinematographers?
Listen, the crew is amazing. We're lucky we get to do interviews, but it's really an enormous amount of people. Spend a lot of time, effort, talent to put this thing together. The crew is incredible. Our other EPs, the writers' room, the cast is so good. We're so excited for everyone to see these performances. They really elevated it. Disney and Sony couldn't have been more supportive. I mean, they kept pushing us to, bring out the drama, and we're like, okay, awesome, yeah, make it scarier. No problem. It was a really unique experience. It was really a lot of fun.
100%. And I want to know also your opinion on this too, Rob. I wanted to talk to Hilary about this first. I mean, it's one of those things, kind of a general thing. I mean, we are seeing this surge of popularity in like the horror TV and film kind of world and everything. Like it's always been around, horror movies, but I've noticed a big surge in popularity. I genuinely think that like when I watch horror movies, I feel like I am going on a roller coaster. That's just the way I put it on. Like I'm strapping in for the thrills and I'm feeling all these emotions and everything. So my question is like, how much are you focused on, like how much are you conscious of the audience watching the show while you're making a show like Goosebumps? Or do you think about the audience when it's wrapped and everything? Like, are you conscious of what the audience might be going through when they're watching the show? Kind of what I said, like the thrill ride component of it. Like I'm curious about that.
I mean, I think you're always thinking about the audience, even from the way a script is written. You're always like, what you're writing is like, we reveal this, and that's always to the audience. So when you're writing horror, something scary, your first and foremost thought is always the person viewing this. How are they taking in this information? What's going to be important later? And I think that roller coaster is the absolute perfect metaphor for why people like horror, because a roller coaster is going to end. It's probably going to be safe. If you're at a reputable park, and so you're going to have fun and be scared, but you're going to wind up safe at the end of it. And I think that that's what we deliver on.
Rob, can you add to that a little bit? Do you know what I mean with the roller coaster comparison?
I can add to the roller coaster metaphor. It's the thing that scares me the most about roller coasters, just like horror. It's when you start and it climbs and climbs and climbs, and you feel comfortable. It's not going very fast. It's gonna crest, and then just as it does, boom! It's the shock scare, and you're into it. So I think it's very apropos, the roller coaster metaphor.
Absolutely. And last question, I have to ask this before I go. I mean, Hilary, what is your favorite Goosebumps book, or top two?
My favorite Goosebumps book is called Stay Out of the Basement. And it's where there's like a dad and he is like a botanist in the basement or something. And it's like, you can't go down there. Dad's in the basement. Yep. And he like ends up turning into a plant or something. I've always liked that because it's that kind of scary thing of what are your parents doing behind closed doors?
Absolutely. That's one of my favorites too. Rob, what about you?
Oh, well, a lot of my favorites are actually in the show, but I guess It's always been a cross between Night of the Living Dummy, because that one's just great. And the first one, honestly, Welcome to Dead House.
Yep.
I always loved that one. That one's just, I think that kind of stands the test of time. It's such a creepy concept, you know?
It's so scary.
It was terrifying. So terrifying. I was a Monster Blood guy growing up. That was probably one of my favorites.
Monster Blood's great. Yeah.
And there was also the return on the plane. Like there was you couldn't get rid of the Monster Blood.
That's right.
But honestly, I'm really excited for people to see it. Friday the 13th episodes are going to start rolling out on Disney Plus and Hulu. That is Goosebumps. Hilary, Rob, thank you so much for your time. It was really great chatting with you both.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.